You're standing in a room full of people, and suddenly you feel like you need permission just to exist there. Meanwhile, someone else walks in like they own the place. You're shrinking. They're expanding. You apologize for speaking. They assume people want to hear them. What does the way you enter a space reveal about whether you were seen or ignored as a child? Here's what's actually happening. Children who grow up ignored often become adults who struggle to believe they deserve attention at all. They walk into a room and feel like they must shrink. They enter relationships and wonder if they're too much. Psychologists call this an internalized neglect schema. Over time, your brain wires itself to expect neglect, to anticipate dismissal, to assume that your needs are a burden. From a psychological perspective, acknowledgment isn't just about feeling good, it's about survival. Research shows that children need 3 core things to thrive: safety, stimulation, and connection. But connection, being seen, heard, and valued, is what shapes a child's sense of identity most directly. John Bowlby, the founder of attachment theory, argued that secure attachment is formed when a caregiver consistently acknowledges a child's needs. That becomes the blueprint for future relationships. But if a child is ignored, they internalize a dangerous belief. Maybe I don't deserve love. Maybe I'm not important. Studies in neuroscience show that when a child's attempts at connection are repeatedly ignored, their brain interprets it as a threat. The stress response is activated. Cortisol floods the body. Over time, this rewires their nervous system to expect rejection. Their baseline becomes anxiety. And yet, from the outside, they might just look like a quiet kid. Here's the painful truth. Childhood neglect doesn't always look like abuse. Sometimes it's simply absence. Unanswered questions, lack of eye contact, the forgotten birthday, or the parent too busy to notice. But the psychology of the ignored child runs deep. It shapes how they see themselves and how they build relationships decades later. Imagine being 8 years old and running home with a drawing you're proud of. You hold it up to show your parent, but they're busy on the phone. You try again at dinner, but the conversation passes you by. Eventually, you put the drawing away and never mention it again. Now imagine this happening hundreds of times over childhood. The child learns that excitement and pride are things best kept to themselves. Years later, that same person struggles to celebrate their own successes. The ignored child becomes the adult who ignores themselves. Research confirms this. A 2019 study found that emotional neglect in childhood is strongly correlated with chronic feelings of loneliness in adulthood, regardless of social environment. Even if that adult has friends or a partner, a quiet emptiness often lingers inside. Now let's break down how this shows up. Ignored children often develop coping mechanisms that look like strengths. Some become fiercely independent. Others become high achievers, striving to earn acknowledgement. Some become peacekeepers, avoiding conflict. But beneath these strengths is exhaustion. The independent child grows into an adult who struggles to trust. The high achiever becomes the perfectionist, never satisfied. The peacekeeper becomes the people pleaser, unable to say no. In relationships, the patterns can be profound. Some adults who were ignored become desperate for affection, clinging to anyone who shows attention. Others keep emotional distance because closeness feels dangerous. Both reactions come from the same root, the fear that love will disappear. But here's where something remarkable happens. The human brain has resilience. Even if you grew up ignored, as an adult, you can build new patterns. Every time you speak up and are heard, your brain registers safety. Every time you set a boundary and it's respected, your nervous system learns trust. Every moment of healthy connection becomes like a drop of water wearing away old wounds. Healing doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's finally telling a friend, "I need you to listen to me." Sometimes it's daring to say, "I feel hurt," instead of swallowing the pain. Sometimes it's whispering to yourself, "My feelings matter, even if no one taught me that before." Here's the bottom line. If you were that child waiting for someone to notice you, if you ever felt like your emotions were too heavy for anyone to carry, let me say this: you matter now. Healing is about giving yourself the love you deserved all along. The child who was ignored often becomes the adult who refuses to ignore others. And in that choice, imperfect, messy, brave, you discover something profound. You were never truly invisible. You were simply waiting to be seen.